It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to a BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we definitely have a wise person with whom we will be having a conversation. He's a social entrepreneur, he's a bookseller, he's a change maker, he's an educationist, he's an education leader, and now an author. So let me welcome Mr. Sandeep Dutt, who in his past life has been, an evangelist for books. His work around the International Youth Prize was widely acknowledged and acclaimed. He just written a book called My Good School, and what a good school should be, what is the objectives of schooling, what is the objectives of learning, and he's a school coach. That's the first time I've met a school coach, so to say, but he makes sure that he's able to coach educationists to be able to coach everybody else to do well. So welcome, Mr. Sandeep Dutt, for talking to BW Education.
Thank you, Anurag.
First of all, I'd like to know from you, we'll come to your book, The Good School. I know William Bissell in the introduction writes that you are a lifelong learner, you're a lifelong student, and you practice the good school in the way you live. But coming to you, how have been the last 10 months for you personally and professionally?
Anurag, I think they were the best 10 months of my life. I couldn't have had a better year than this, having traveled virtually 35 years from corner to corner in search of the self. I think the last 1 year, honestly, if you ask me, I finally figured out why we are here as human beings. And that, for me, was a very valuable, insightful experience. Yes, it's a coincidence that the book came out in this time span where I sat peacefully and I was able to actually complete it. The book, which started in 2012, actually had to come out in COVID times. It's just timing, nothing else, because we signed up with the publishers at least a year and a half back. Yes, last year was good from three ways. One, we realized that we have to live peacefully with the current environment. The conflict between human being and environment, that came across. Second, we realized how much you miss each other. I've not met you for so much time. So we realized that we often in our life take some relationships for granted, which we should not. So that was the second thing. And third, it was an opportunity to actually innovate, design, and rethink as to how we should learn. And that perhaps was what I was really looking forward to. Sometimes in our quest of travel and going to places and actually going physically, chasing brick and mortar, we don't sit down and think. So you could wear a thinking hat and actually enjoy the year. And that's the best part of the year.
Thank you for being so candid, Sandeep. And I know that, you have a purpose in life. You always had. Maybe that's become even more crystal clear and got reinforced. And you're right. We take a lot of relationships, and not only relationships, a lot of ways of being for granted. But I think the last 10 months made us that we can't take anything for granted. We must value what we have and express gratitude for what we have. Now, let me come to the book. How did the idea of the book come about? And I'd like you to show our readers a copy of the book coming from the author. It's called My Good School.
You see the beautiful school on the book.
Yes.
That's the beauty. I mean, the cover design itself is a story in itself.
Right.
So the book really was thought of long back, and this is not my first book. This is my book number 4. Yeah. So this quest for My Good School started way back about 30 years back. And you perhaps know, and I think most viewers would know, that despite the fact it is not my profession, it's actually my book. It's actually my passion. So schooling for me has never been on the forefront of my career and livelihood. But I've always followed schools, tracked them, and tried to understand from a school's biography point of view कि मैं school क्यों हूँ. So I thought to myself that मैं school बन के देखूँ और सोचूं कि मैं क्यों आया इस दुनिया में. So it's metaphorical. So when I thought that मैं school बन के क्यों आया लोगों के लिए, that's the story. I thought, let me ask the school कि मैं अच्छा क्यों हूँ. हर एक की इच्छा होती है कि मेरा स्कूल अच्छा है, मैं अच्छा क्यों हूँ. So I was trying to find that out, and that's why in 1998 I came out first with my book called Good Schools of India, where I traveled across the country and I visited over 300 schools just to find out what makes them stand apart and what they have to offer. After that book, I said, okay, let me zero in on the schooling capital of India. I did a book on Dehradun schools. Now, those books were basically factopedias. They were the quest for knowledge, or they were the Googling of my mind system, where I thought, let me collect as to what makes the school. And then finally, when I started my, I should say, leadership position with the International Award for Young, which you mentioned here, and I traveled across the world, I realized that there is something more to the school than the school show in brick and mortar. Why are relationships important in school? What does the school have for each one of us? And that's why this quest for the book called My Good School began. So My Good School really is a school story. The school telling you, why do I have a school bell? Why do I have an assembly in school? What is the role of a child in a school? What is the role of a parent in a school? What is the role of various things you see around in school for granted? Why do you have a syllabus in school? What is the curriculum of a school? So school is telling you why you have all these things. I hope that helps, Anurag.
Absolutely. Your life is about passion. This book is about passion and the learnings that we can have from that. Now, of course, when you write a book, there are many chapters right from, what is the purpose of a school? So give us, purpose for everyone is very important. Why do I run a media company? Why do I do what I do? Why am I doing this conversation? So tell us, give us which one is your favorite chapter and why, and give us a peek for our viewers and our readers. Give us a peek into the book.
Actually, I owe a lot of gratitude for this book to the publisher who thought so deeply into it, and to editorial team. I had written random thoughts and chapters when I traveled to the school, and my writing point, I may want to mention here, is at the bottom of the Aravalis near the Ranakpur temple, where I used to write chapters every month. So I wrote this book chapter by chapter, and every chapter is a story in itself. And the location is the very fabled Fab India school. So whenever I used to go spend my 1 month there, 1 week every month there, trying to figure out what makes into going of a school. That's why I wrote the chapters. So first thing I wanted to address was, why go to school? That's where the whole story started. And my editors kindly helped me in a very nice way. They said, let us do the book in 4 sections. What, why, and how of teaching? Why do you have teaching? That was the first question we wanted to answer. Second, how do you redefine education and learning? That's what we're all talking about. So it's also timely. And third, what are the lessons for life we take across from a school? Because that's the most important part. And last but not the least, what is school leadership? So that's the very pragmatic way of putting it across. It's very different. It's very unique. And to take things further, I think for me, the most important part of the finding was that the principal is a chief learning leader. In our business world, you talk of CEO, you talk of COO, you have all the C's and the E's and the O's you use. But I thought there's something in a school. You can't use the word CEO in a school. So when a principal in a school epitomizes as a chief learning leader or a CAL, that school transforms. So my quest of finding out what a school is, what a school does, and how a school does, that's what the story of the book is.
Okay, Sandeep. Now, because I know you as an individual, now you've been, you were born in books, so to say, around books. Luckily, your family had an association with the legendary English Book Depot in Dehradun. You went to a school which is, again, venerable. Then you built a book retailing business that you sold off. And then in the last 10 years, you've given back in the way of nurturing this beautiful school called the Fab Cafe School, the Fab India School. I go too much to Fab Cafe, so I call it Fab Cafe, but I mean
the
Fab
cafe
India
has
School.
A connection with the school. I shared that. The sabzi of the school perhaps come from the cafe, come from the backyard of the school.
Yes. So, I just want to know that when you talk about your learnings in this book, what is the imprint the school has had on you and hence in the book? And give us to our readers and viewers, tell us a little bit about this Fab India School that you have nurtured for so many years.
Yeah, perhaps across the world, having traveled everywhere, there's only one change maker school I would like to write my epitaph at. So when I write down, I should say that I slept here or I sleep here, where my heart lies. And that'll be at this little school in a village called Bali in Rajasthan. The school is very interesting. It has roughly 14 acres of land, and from 14 acres, 8 acres is a forest. So when the piece of land was bought way back in the 1990s, they bought a piece of land for 19,000 for a princely sum, where Mr. William Bissell put in everything he had, borrowed, and actually bought that piece of land. And he had come to India from Westland University in US in his Woodstock days, कि मैं भी जिंदगी में कुछ करूंगा. So he had gone there trying to make a trust where he wanted to work with artisans and make mojeries, the jutis. So jutis did not happen, but he actually got thinking hat sorted out, where the artisan said, आप हमारी बेटियों के लिए एक स्कूल बना दो और वहाँ उस स्कूल में अंग्रेजी होनी चाहिए. So that's where the story starts. And this arid piece of land was bought, and today this arid piece of land has a forest, and the beautiful part of the forest is it harvests water for us. We have water from our own wells. We don't have pipe water to the school. Beyond that, we use solar light. So today you're talking of solar energy. The school has been using solar light for 20 to 20 years. Then beyond that, because of the forest, we have our fresh air, we have solar light. We got internet in about 2010 or 2011. How we got it was, we actually did a small aperture from the railway station. So rail wire has been around for a long while. So with rail wire, we connected the school and we created a Wi-Fi campus. Now in this school, there are three important things. The most important thing, which is a lesson for every school, is that the stakeholders make a school. Now, who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are first and foremost the community, the local people, where culture, livelihood, and everything of theirs matters around the school. So the local people who are the parents, they are the first stakeholders. Second stakeholders, of course, are the teachers of the school. Third stakeholders are the students. And the fourth stakeholder is the management. Normally, when you talk of schools, you say the management has a stake in the school. Now, this is a very funny concept because management feels that they are the stakeholder of the school. But let me tell you, management is only 1/4 stakeholder of the school. You may have invested in the asset, but as far as stakeholders are concerned, the terminology and the way the school works is different. So first thing was we found that all stakeholders have to be involved. Everyone should feel this is our good school, we are nurturing it. Second, the school has to be in unison with the environment around it. So in this school, we had an audit for a green school from Center of Science. They came and said that you should have a plastic bin, one wet bin and one dry bin. So I said, I don't have litter. I don't have wet litter and dry litter. Why should I have a plastic bin? Because in your green standards, you're asking me to put a plastic bin. So you can well understand the sensitivity behind the school. Why there is no litter? Because the children don't have a tuck shop. They don't bring wrappers to school. They bring food in their tiffins, eat that and go home. So the children have their own organic farm in the school. So the school definitely has classrooms like a normal school. It follows a CBSE pattern with English as a medium. But the interesting part of this unique school is that the classroom is not confined to the four walls. And that is the second thing of the school. Classroom can never be confined to the four walls. And why we say that? Because in school, children do service, skill, sport, and study. And that's a good school. And third, the leadership of a school has to be with the local community. You will say this is paradoxical, that the investor has actually put in money. How can the investor give the leadership away? Now, if you look at the RTE Act and look at the way the government says it, the school management committee should actually be operating the school, while the owner and the trust should be only an asset custodian. So the structure of the school in true sense is actually designed in such a way that the original trust is only an asset custodian, while the operators is the local community. And that's what we managed to set right in the school, where the community decides what we should do, how we should do, and how we should actually make learning great fun for children. A classic example today is in this school, very close to the school, they are growing vegetables. Now, the company which grows vegetables is an old boy of the school. 7 teachers, out of which 6 are girls, have come back to teach in the school. So this is the beauty of that school, where people actually nurture it, they grow it. And a lot of our experiments and learnings come from the Fab India school. Honestly, the first My Good school in the world was the Fab India school. And when I went to Finland, I thought they're telling us about a phenomena-based learning. The Fab India school's been doing phenomena-based learning for 20 years. If you see our own culture, today we are looking outside. We are trying to import practices and curriculums. But our Guru Shishya Parampara was the best possible curriculum in the world. And today we are actually going back and seeing that what can be learned for livelihood, what can be learned for life skills. Now that is what the Guru Shishya Parampara was. So this idea of Guru Shishya Parampara is very strong. And there is a guru in the teacher, there is a guru in the parent, there is a guru in the child, and there is a guru in the management. So that's how we use a good school like the Fab India school, where all stakeholders are involved. Second, the school is need blind. So even if you don't have money, you can go to the school. 1/4 of the children in the school don't pay the fees. Then you will say that their burden will fall on the other children. No, it's not that way. They are paid from and endowed from an endowment fund which has been created specifically for them. So when the school is need blind, there will be diversity, inclusion, and belonging. You will not be able to identify who's who and who comes from where. And that's what makes a great country. So if you have a school which is need blind, which is providing for all children, you don't differentiate with the community, you build relationships and you learn from each other.
Please stay with us. We will be back after a quick commercial break.
Beautiful. I think I can say I grew up in Old Gurgaon, and I went to a convent school called Our Lady of Fatima Convent High School. I can say it was a good school. While I went to good institutions post that, my 11th, 12th I did from a college, and I topped the college. Then I went to an engineering school, business school. But I would say my school was the building block for whatever I have achieved in life, for my spoken English, for my written English, for my value system, for my exposure. So schools are very important because they really kind of shape up the person you become in the subsequent years. So clearly, my good school is a good kind of a model for everyone to follow. The Fab India school is a good model for everyone to follow. Now let me change gears, and you talk about education evolving. Now in the last 10 months, there's been this talk of a hybrid model, a physical plus online model. Right now we have a compulsion not to open schools. I mean, somewhere the schools have opened, but not at most places. So when we have a choice of either having a traditional old world school education vis-a-vis a hybrid model, what do you think will triumph in future? What is needed? How should education keep pace with the changes in the landscape post-COVID?
I have a very interesting answer for this. For me, the hybrid model is learning beyond the syllabus. So I'm going to answer it in a very different way. You talk of hybrid when you're using technology and you're using infrastructure. I'm saying something else, that the how of schooling matters, and the how is actually not dependent on the technology, neither is it dependent on brick and mortar. The how of a school is built around relationship first. Second, how of a school is built on what I keep saying is deep rooted to the culture, is deep rooted to the requirements of the community. So if you look at the last 1 year, we've had the opportunity to understand each other. We've had time to actually spend with the people who matter around us. That is the first part. How does school start, or how is a good school built? The first thing a school does, it actually offers you an experience from personal and social development point of view. A child comes to school as an individual person, but goes out as a social being. Now, when you are transiting the school journey from an individual person to a school being, yes, you may have tools, you may have infrastructure, but net to net, what matters is the relationships. What matters is the teachers. Yes, it does help if you have technology. I'm not denying it, but technology is not what provides you hybrid. Hybrid is where learning is student-led, where you have schooling experience which is actually tailor-made for every child. Now that should be the hybrid learning. Now how does that hybrid learning happen? Every child is different, every child's requirements are different, every individual is unique. Some children are good in sports, some are good in skills, some are good in community activity, and some are good in study. Now, when we can use the current system, let us say we built a digital school, or let us look at the NIOS model, which is the open school model, where you should be only going to a board for assessment, that too if you want it. So now time has come to look at that model, that you only use the national boards as assessing agencies, and assessment will be optional, because ultimately it's learning in life that matters, and learning will happen inside the school premises, but even more outside the school premises. Yes, you do talk of a hybrid model, which perhaps indicates some form of e-learning, offline learning, blended learning. We are saying many more terms, but end of the day, it's the human relationship that can use any of these tools to build learning. So the role of humans will become more complex, because you will require far more thinking in the new process, because the challenge today is no one can answer this. What will happen when the school will open tomorrow? Are we going to forget offline classes and go to online classes? Are we going to have only online classes or offline classes? That's not the discussion. Answer to the question is very simple. I'll put the question to you and to everyone. Are we in a position to offer the child a better learning experience? And that's my good school. The schools who have worked in such a way that the learning experience of a child becomes richer, irrespective of any medium of learning, that school will thrive. If you look at historically, you talk of examples of liberal education, you'll talk of Shanti Niketan, you'll talk of Rishi Valley, you'll talk of my father's government school, which he used to go to, and I learned how to write from my father, who was only 10th pass and who didn't even go to school beyond class 10. So he taught me my grammar, he taught me how to write. So it clearly proves that you can learn from people way beyond you can learn from your syllabus. And having people first in learning is more important. You learn from your friend, you learn from people around you, you learn from your classmates much more. You learn from the bus driver who drives you to school. You learn from the Didi who's around you. Life skills come from there. Your teacher you carry with you lifelong. So when I ask you very simply, what is your learning from school? You will say learning from school is a relationship. Learning from school is what my teacher did and I followed my teacher. That's the learning from school. I hope that helps, Anurag.
Absolutely. And I've always said, that I learned a lot from my parents. And I keep saying home is the best school. What you see around you, you pick up, you learn. Second thing, you rightly said, you learn from everyone you come in contact, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your teachers, whether it's your peers in the classmates in the class. You learn from books, you learn from movies, you learn from your outings. So, learning is a process that happens, you rightly said, through social interaction, through dynamics in relationships, through actual experiences. So I think that augurs well for a physical school, if at all there is some distinction like that. And yes, there will be online tools that will supplement the real life experiences, because there is an efficiency in them. Let me ask you, the national education policy was announced 4 months back. In its spirit and in its construct, it is very, very progressive. It is comprehensive. When it comes to implementing it, what do you think should be prioritized?
Very simple. Teachers first.
I love that. You're one of the very few people who said, a lot of people have said technology first.
No, teachers first. Very simple. I'm of a firm believer that schools can only transform when we have #happy teachers. When I sleep finally in life, on my grave or on my epitaph stone, please write down #happy teachers or a happy teacher slept here. That's the most important part of a school, happy teachers. So the new education policy is path breaking, because never has a policy before said that we need to put the spotlight on teachers. And if you look at the policy, there are 250 pages, and actually I've read it. I read the drafts. I wrote various suggestions. I don't know if the ministers ever opened my email. I did write a lot. I even sent our good school model, which we created. And I do see that what has come out of the policy does have 3 very clear deliverables. 1, teachers first. Second, the child has to lead the learning, not the teacher. And third, The learning must happen in the environment which is most comfortable for the child, because then only a child will learn. So when you're talking of multilingual association, and the policy is to a large extent liberal arts bent of mind, if I want to describe the policy that way. And that's the good part of the policy, because it's actually organizing. See, this policy has done one good thing. They have taken the best ideas from all the countries. So if I look at Finland, if I look at Singapore, or if I look at America, I normally mention these three examples because they are unique. And all three have given something to the policy. So whether I look at a vocation curriculum, that is there in the policy. Whether I look at learning beyond the classroom and extracurriculars and better learning environment, that is there in the policy. But all this will only happen when we have teachers first. And that to me is the most significant change this policy has said. You will say, you will debate that this policy won't work. Nothing will work, but what will work definitely is teachers first. If you look at what happens all over the country, and I read exhaustively every week, every state government today, in its limited way, in its small way, is doing something for what they call teacher training. Now, you call it teacher training, but I'm calling it learning forward. So if teachers take their learning forward, the children will take their learning further. And when children take their learning further, every stakeholder will deliver to the requirements of the children. And that's why we are currently working very aggressively to build the biggest open school in the world. So what we feel that a school should not have a syllabus. You should be able to learn with anyone you like at your own pace, do what you want with your own resources. That's a school. Now that's a my good school. It sounds utopian, but please appreciate, as every child's requirement is different. I say every day that a school does 4 things, and I actually have it behind in my wall. There are 4 different children. So one child is very good in service. The child has the service bent of mind. The child knows how to give. The child appreciates giving his lunch. The child appreciates giving his pencil. The child is born with the spirit ki mujhe duniya ko dena hai. That's the first child. Second child, मुझे दुनिया से कुछ लेना है, मैं लूंगा क्या हुनर, मैं गाना सीखूंगा, डांस करना सीखूंगा, मैं स्किल्स लूंगा जो मेरी लाइफ में मुझे आगे ले जाएंगी. तीसरा बच्चा है, मैं स्पोर्ट्स खेलूंगा, मैं छाती फुला के आगे चलूंगा. और चौथा बच्चा है, मैं दिमाग लगा के काम करता रहूंगा. ये चारों बच्चे जब स्कूल में इकट्ठे काम करेंगे, they will work together. And every child has the opportunity in a school to do service, skills, sport, and study. Now that is the how of a successful school. I don't want to name any skill. Service, skill, sport, and study. Absolutely. A school has to offer these 4 things. And that's why at the book also we say service, skill, sport, and study. We've done a whole chapter. And the book actually ends up with an epilogue. My good school banega. We will make a my good school for the world. And that's the digital school which we are creating, which every school can use as a curriculum. And the whole idea was that whatever work we have done in the last 30 years, we should put it in a repository, in a foundation, so that school transformation is easily accessible to everyone across the world. And that's where we are going with what we call the Learning Forward India Foundation.
I like that, learning forward. See, again, as you know, that learning is a lifelong process. You got to be curious and you got to be open for knowledge to come in. My last question to you is, a lot has changed in the last 10 months, right? And a lot has changed for good or bad, time will tell. Of course, the loss of lives was very bad. The loss of livelihoods was also very bad. Only positive was that we were able to reflect and do the best from whatever position we could. Now, going forward, if you had to make 2-3 predictions for the education ecosystem, what would those be?
Yeah, very simple. Going forward, focus has to shift in schools on teachers away from children. That is the first going forward. Second, the children have to have an environment where they can pursue their skills, their passion, what they love doing. That's the second thing. And third, all stakeholders have to be involved. If you look at last 1 year, it's actually done irreparable loss to stakeholder relationships. The teachers have formed an association, parents have formed an association, schools have formed an association, the government has its own point of view. So what we need now to go forward is how do we build this relationship? So 3 things we'll need: teachers first, an environment for children to do what they want to their best, and third, strong relationship with stakeholders. The relationship with stakeholders is perhaps not looked at as strongly in the education policy. It's the only one area where I thought it does mention about the RTE Act. It does mention about strengthening what we call the school management committees, but it only gives lip service to that. If you go back to the 2008 RTE Act, when Kapil Sibal was the education minister, when they wrote actually the model act, which they sent to all the states, and the states have used virtually 75 to 80% of it. But again, they have not been able to have the school management committee lead the school or understand the requirements of a school, because school management committee alone can build this fractured relationship which we have at the moment. Parents can't pay the fees, they don't want to pay the fees, they would not like to pay the fees. This is the question all we are talking of. But children would like to learn, teachers would like to teach. So how all this will come across? It only boils down to relationship.
Beautiful.
If you look at school, it's an acronym for relationship. That's about it. School is the ultimate relationship, is the temple of relationship for us.
Beautiful. I like that. One, collaboration has to come between each stakeholder. Second is relationships matter. And, one needs to create an enabling framework which encourages relationships. So thank you, Mr. Dutt, for talking to us. It's been fascinating to talking to you, and you reinforced what a school should be, what a good school should be, what my good school should be, and really use it as a metaphor for growth. Because, learning leads to growth, and growth leads to contribution. It leads to impact. So we wish you impact, and your 4 S's are a beautiful framework to be able to look at the whole education ecosystem. So for those of you who missed this conversation, can watch it on the YouTube channel of BW Business World and BW Education, and read it in the next issue of BW Education, plus have the transcript on the bweducation.com website. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Sandeep Dutt, for doing what you do, for writing this book and talking to BW Education. Thank you once again, and we wish you and the book all the best, and I look forward to meeting you face to face soon. And all the good luck for the Fab India school that you've nurtured. May it become a kind of model for other schools to follow. You talked about inquiry-based learning. I think that augurs well for the kind of young minds we prepare. They have a sense of inquiry, they have a sense of wonder, they have a sense of curiosity. I think they'll be better learners. So thank you once again.